The welcomes and good mornings this hour because we're jumping right into the business. Joining us on the phone this morning is Congresswoman Yvette Herrell. Good morning, ma'am. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, and it's great to be with you again.
It's we always appreciate spending time with you and chit-chat. I know they always pull you in 37 different directions and things, so it's nice to get a chance to spend a few minutes with you. So we do appreciate that.
That's right. It's just imagine like a piece of dough on a counter and then a rolling pin.
Yeah.
Just spreading out. But it's a good day. I'm so blessed to be able to do it.
Well, how I know you're are you in the district right now? Or are you back in D.C.?
I'm in the district. Came back for the 4th of July, and we've been in recess there. And then I'm actually flying back this weekend.
Okay,
and
so
then
back to work this weekend, or at least back to the Hill this weekend. It's not like the work doesn't stop.
Right, exactly. But yes.
So, real quick, before we kind of talk about what you got ahead here, when you're back in the district, what kind of the stuff do you get to work on there when you're not? I mean, is that the chance for you to get to talk with constituents and things, or is it more than that?
Yeah, it's interesting because even when I'm back in district, we still are having committee hearings, which are done virtual when we're on basically recess.
Yeah.
But it does give me the opportunity to go. What I try to do is get around as much as the district as I can, depending on how many days I'm here. And then I have an opportunity to visit. Like yesterday, I had a visit with the gentleman from the National Federation of Independent Businesses, NFIB. Got to visit with PMS, which is the medical provider all over the district, had a meeting with their group this week. And, so I'm just having meetings with different constituent groups, different industries, just having conversations about what's happening, what are we watching out for. We did a really great town hall, a conference call with medical providers, physicians all over the district on Monday. And what we're working on is a way to improve the pre-existing condition. What is happening is the doctors are saying, hey, we need to do a knee surgery on this person. Mm-hmm. But the insurance company is saying, well, before we approve that, let's do 10 weeks of physical therapy. And what ends up happening is it's devastating because sometimes because they don't do the surgery when they think they need it done, there's sometimes irreversible damage. So this is a real problem for our physicians, and they also spend a lot of time trying to collect from the insurance company. So I had a physician, one of the doctors' caucus, a Congresswoman Miller Meeks, was on the phone. We had a teleconference with physicians from all over the district working on some issues we can have the state address, but also the federal Congress can address. So really, keeping our finger on the pulse of things that are problematic, if you will. So it's a to get to see people. And then, of course, when there's time, or if I can get to a Republican meeting or something like that, it's always nice to attend those.
Yeah, we got, there's a lot going on in the world today, but that's a problem. That that's been a problem as long as I can remember, is when it comes to the healthcare. When obviously insurance companies are insurance companies, and at the end of the day, they're private companies that turn profit. But at the same time, you want to balance that to where at the end of the day, they're footing the bill for the medical procedures and what have you, but we don't want them making the healthcare decisions on a patient either. And that's where we got to find that, where the doctors are now not able to do their job because the insurance companies are refusing to pay for basically what the expert in the room is telling them what needs to happen here. And
that's exactly right. Yeah. Or, in our family, I have a personal experience because you're right. The doctors will make the determination on what needs to happen. And for instance, and it's also not just what the procedure is, but what kind of medical equipment can be used. So for instance, my sister last year fell on some stairs and broke her hip. So she had emergency surgery, but the insurance company would not approve the more higher quality grade medical equipment she needed. So we did the surgery. And 6 months later, she's walking, and the thing just cracks in half. So back to the hospital, another emergency surgery. And, of course, the second time around, the insurance company did approve the better quality, and I don't know the medical terms, but the medical equipment she needed within her hip, and ended up having then a full hip replacement. But I mean, and we had this discussion on the phone, that cost over double what it would have costed if we just would have done it right the first time.
Yeah.
And then, we were talking about the rehab, so literally she was sidelined for almost a year with that entire process. And so it's those kinds of things. And you're right, you've got the medical expert making the determination, and then you call the insurance company, and it's, somebody, at a call center going through probably a manual thinking, well, nah.
Yeah.
And so it's very problematic. And the cost of prescription drugs as well. That's another thing that we're addressing. So and to me, these are issues that this is everybody. This is not one of those Republican or Democrat issues. And what I have found, honestly, Mike, is so many of the things we can work on that would better the people of New Mexico and the people of America they're not partisan issues. They're just common sense. Let's find a better way to lower costs and streamline the process to help the physicians and the patients.
Yeah, you're right. It's and this is where politics meets government that's bad. And
right.
Where we're so wrapped up in the political side of it that we're not getting the work done. And
exactly.
And that's we talk. I mean, we could have the polarizing issues, your abortions, and obviously there's clear divide on what we agree or disagree on those things, but. Because of those things, it screws up the ability to get the things that, we all get, what we all want to be able to go to the doctor, get the services we need, and get it paid for without the hassle and worries that it shouldn't be there. We all agree that,
right.
And that's where, unfortunately, those areas don't get fixed because we're too busy yelling at each other about these other polarizing issues. And so they use issues like this to hold over the head of the other to do all that. And at the end of the day, the person that loses is we, the people. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And, and I've had to remind several groups that I've talked to, this silent majority or the sitting on the sideline just kind of rolling with the punches. I said, listen, this is a gut punch every day, but there are so many things that we can really be speaking about and talking about and getting engaged in that would really be beneficial. And so I think, I feel as though there's a little bit of an urgency. People seem to be now paying closer attention. We came through the pandemic. That was just very, just that whole year was just crazy for everyone. And of course, as we've started to come out of that, open back up, and we're seeing more, activity throughout the state and throughout the communities. Now I think people are starting to go, well, wait a minute, now the gas prices are getting, they're over 45% higher than they were 1 year ago. Groceries are going up. I mean, I think the reality of, okay, what is happening? People are starting to question what is going on. And I think now we're seeing, my sense is people are, in my opinion, the ones I've visited with, they're not caught up in the rhetoric or that polarizing, like you say, just these crazy debates that aren't really beneficial to their little day-to-day lives. I mean, right now, the biggest issue, one of them, is how are we going to get the workforce back into these businesses?
This is
and
a problem
that's what.
now. Yeah,
it's nationwide. And here's what's heartbreaking. It's twofold. You've got a handful of small businesses in New Mexico that somehow held on to that pandemic, and now they are facing the question of closing their doors because of lack of workforce. Here they thought, okay, once this is all lifted, we can get everybody back in and start, turning a profit or recover some of our losses. Now they're not able to do that. So then on the other hand, you've got a segment of people who've stayed in the workforce who are sitting there going, well, wait a minute. I stayed very committed to my job and to my employer and, went through all this, and now my coworkers are still at home. So it's not a great situation. And sadly, it's not just about New Mexico in this case. It is nationwide, and you just pick an industry and everyone is feeling that squeeze of not having the workforce back into the jobs that are open. So that's something that I'm hopeful that they will. I understand there are some families that absolutely need the kind of the hand up, if you will, but there are a lot that are taking advantage. In fact, Congressman Brady, with Ways and Means, he's out of Texas. He put out I don't know if you saw it, but there was a little report he put out a couple of weeks ago, and he said, with all of these stimulus checks and all of these benefits, the average household of four is receiving about $100,000 from the federal government with these relief packages. That's a lot of money. And then you understand why people that have maybe made 30, 40, 50, 60,000 a year, and those are, for New Mexico, those are very good wages.
Yeah.
But we can see where this amount of stimulus will have that impact. So I'm hopeful that they will not extend that. I feel like our businesses deserve it. This is the backbone of our economy, not only here, but obviously around the nation. So that's something obviously we're watching. But it's just, to me, again, that's a reality that people have. People are concerned about the border issues. These are the kinds of conversations that I'm having with constituents, whether it's a policy, lack of workforce, concern about border, especially when I'm speaking with our law enforcement agencies around the district. So, yeah, there's a lot we could be doing for the people, and seems like the people are getting pushed to the sides while we, grandstand and, watch our colleagues get arrested, for protesting in the Senate yesterday. Just kind of crazy stuff instead of the reality. So it's a strange world, politics.
It is, and it's one of those. I almost, as an American, a part of me, because I'm torn when I see all this stuff, and I'm sure you have some of these same feelings here, because at the end of the day, we all want this country to be awesome. We want it.
That's right.
We want our citizens to have every opportunity they want. They want the ability to, to live and live free and to live happy. We all want that, I think, and it gets frustrating. So part of me, I see this and I'm like, well, maybe the politics will deteriorate so much where the American public finally puts their foot down and says enough of this. Part of me hopes that gets to the point, but then part of me says, well, how much gets destroyed in the process of doing that? So I get very scared when I see this stuff, because part of me is saying maybe this will finally impact the change we need at some, get some of that partisan, and even some. I would even say I'm one of those folks, and I know you kind of agree with some of this. Is some of the congressional. We need some I guess you'd say some kind of oversight on Congress. I think there's a lot of power. Term limits, I think, from the start there, and then complete reform on how. I mean, even like how committees are selected and all that. I think that's just a very. And you and I have talked about that. I just think it's a very. It's a process that really allows people in power to kick back their friends and things for, and instead of putting the people in the right committees that really should be on those committees based on experience and expertise.
That's right.
And I think we need to go from that factor versus, and let's face it, and you and I talked about it, there's certain committees in there that are money generating. They get lobbyists that you know what I mean? The good committees versus committees that don't get all that action, and how people end up in those committees. It's all the good old boy network. It's your party's in power, and you get on it don't matter. Like let's just, for instance, Congresswoman Yvette Herrell, with her background, everything, energy and all that, you'd think you'd be sitting on all the energy committees and things. But
that's right.
But no, that's where big bucks is. So you got to get your seniority to get in those kind of committees.
That's right. It's really, and that's exactly right. And especially on the Democratic side, obviously whoever's in control, it is a power, and it's lockstep. It's, in my opinion, it's a lot of times reward for bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for instance, and you make a great point, because here's and it is concerning, because Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, just created I can't remember the name of this committee. This was just 2 weeks ago. She created this new, committee, oversight type committee, but it's called like disparity or something like this. And guess who's the chair of that? AOC. This is a bartender from New York who, in my opinion, the only business experience she has is putting a credit card number in, Amazon.com and making an order online.
Mm-hmm.
And that's business experience, instead of understanding, balance sheets, the cost of doing business, forecasting, the yields on if it's an ag operation. I mean, all these things, that really impact our day-to-day lives in terms of regulation, all of this. And we've got somebody who thinks the Green New Deal, who we all laughed about, 5 years ago, and now here we are seeing it in almost every single piece of legislation that's being passed out of the House.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're exactly right. Term limits, I think that is the only thing that our founders missed. I don't think they ever thought people would go and serve for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And that is one of the first bills I signed on to. I am a firm believer in term limits because I think it's important that we're turning over the mantle, that we're bringing the fresh ideas, and not getting to that place where you see it, and you mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
The special interest groups are calling the shot, or they're, it's funny to me how, and I will be the first to just give everybody this misnomer. People think that once you serve, that you get that salary for the rest of your life. That is not true. And the retirement is just like a normal business. You pay into it, and you've got to get vested. If you leave after a certain time,
Sure.
before you're vested, it's all and the healthcare also. I had to go to the exchange. It's not what people kind of think it is.
Yeah.
But what is sad is it is these, like you said, these lobbyists that get hold of these people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's then we see it all the time. We see the decisions being made are placating to what the lobbyists want,
Sure.
versus what they've done a job of kind of pushing the people to the back.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, I've had several conversations this last 2 weeks, and I told people, look, we got to remember who the government works for. They work for us. We don't work for them. And we've got to be, I think, off the sidelines now. And I do feel, like I said earlier, it feels like there's more a sense of urgency or involvement. And it used to be, there'd be maybe a tax bill or Obamacare or, 2 or 3 big topics that we talk about. Now, you just pick a topic, whether it's farming and ranching, energy, border, military, healthcare, education with the CRT. You just pick a topic, and there is a bad policy coming your way, and that's what's unfortunate.
And all that's due to the fact because, hey, we're beholden to this group because they supported me here or kicked back me here. So they turn from doing good government for the people to good government for the people that they are beholden to, and that's
right.
That's where we the people lose out on that, and I think that's, if we started in those areas, just term limits and oversight on that kind of stuff, we could see light years of progress happening in Congress. That's just my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and just like even like the infrastructure bill that went through, that bill is such a misnomer. It passed the House on a party line vote. Now the Senate is supposedly continuing to work on language for a different infrastructure bill that actually addresses infrastructure. But the House version that passed it's $2 trillion. We're on track to have spent $10 trillion in the last year with all these crazy bills they're trying to pass. But for instance, in that bill, 1 out of every $2, so half of it, doesn't even go to infrastructure. It goes to a Green New Deal. It's crazy. And then it's a 6-year, there's not, the infrastructure, quote unquote, doesn't start for up to 6 years. So this is just a crazy amount of money to be spending when it's not really going to address what normal, like you and I and people and, all over the district think of infrastructure. No doubt, we understand we do need improvements to our roads, water systems, broadband. We get that. But when we're just passing bills, and here's what it is: what's in the bill is more spending on implementing this Green New Deal and setting up the climate task force and all these things, than actually going, hey, let's go to small town New Mexico and help on an infrastructure project that would actually bring better water, save energy, give them a utility that actually would benefit the consumer. No, we don't do that. So
that would make too much sense.
It makes too much sense. So, I love sitting on the oversight committee, because that is the committee that, roots out, waste, fraud, and abuse.
Sure.
However, being in the minority, unfortunately, the only kind of bills we've heard since I've been there have been equality pay. Mm-hmm. How come women don't make as much as men? It's so racial and racially driven, so many of these policies, and equality. And I just, it baffles me to think, Americans are hurting.
What?
We want our kids to have a good education. We want our businesses open, and we're worried about why women soccer players, make less than men.
Well,
it just baffles me.
You're right, and but I think if you think of an oversight committee instead of are we getting kicked off?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, I just heard a beeping. I don't know. Let me. I don't know what that is. Let me get off. Sorry about that. You still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We got the alarm. Is everything okay?
Oh, I think I just accidentally hit the wrong one. Let me call a congresswoman back. There we go. Congresswoman? Oh, hold on. Let me flip you over here. Sorry about that. Okay, now I think
it's fine.
there we go. Now we're back. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, it's fine.
I had a call come in and it messed everything up. My apologies there. I know we don't have you much longer here, but I do want to point out that we were talking about the oversight committee there, and as me outside looking in, you think as an oversight committee, you guys don't really get presented. All right, these are the things we want you to vote on or to discuss. As an oversight committee, you should kind of have carte blanche to pick your own agendas and pick the only things that you are choosing to see if there's oversight on. It's kind of that would seem more of the check and balance to me rather than saying, hey, we need to take a look at these things. And it's like, okay, but there's other things too. We go wherever we want. You don't present to us the things that you think are bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think you should have some kind of ability to check on these other areas and seeing, hey, is there true oversight here or what kind of pork mess is going on here,
And you bring out a great point. So we all know there are 4 meat processing plants, the 4 big ones that actually process about 80% of the beef and chicken consumption in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And a few weeks ago, one was compromised with a ransomware. So I wrote a letter to the chairman of the oversight committee, and I said, hey, we need to have an oversight hearing with these 4 big producers, number one, so we can understand why and how they're driving the market share. So they're pushing out the smaller producer. When I say smaller producer, that's about 10,000 head of cattle and lower.
Mm.
So several people in New Mexico affected by this. So I said, I'd like to know how and why they're driving the market and why our ranchers have a 12 to 18-month investment in every head of, with every beef steer they have. And yet when they sell it to the packing plant, they are receiving less money than they have in about the last 10 years. So they're maybe making a profit if they're lucky, but most of them not. So let's look into why is there a conglomerate with these 4, and then let's also look at the security of their infrastructure as it relates to ransomware or attacks, because that shut one beef processing plant for several days. If they were attacked where all 4 of those plants got hacked, think about how much.
It's catastrophic.
That's 80%. Oh, catastrophic is, that's 80% of the beef and chicken consumed by this country.
Mm-hmm.
So if they shut that down, so that food supply, that resource, that is a national security issue. But even as important is how are they monopolizing the market where our beef producers, our ag operations are really getting the short end of the stick. And so to me, that's a great example of what we should be seeing in oversight.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I haven't had a response from her, but here's, for an example, I'll give you another example of one of the bills we heard, birthing while black. Why is that an oversight issue? How about if we're going to look at having babies, how about for all women?
Right.
How about for all Americans? How about for all races
Sure.
and cultures and colors? Why? And that's why I say, everything is so very segregated, and even within Congress, you can see the push to really, segregate, and it's just so sad because our country's so much better than that.
Yeah, that's
we know we are.
It's a confusing message. They keep, and it
That's
is,
right.
and it's a slippery slope we're going down right now with some of this stuff because anytime you promote one race over another for any reason, it creates a problem. And
Sure.
And I want the equal opportunities for everybody. That's the way it should be. But when you're when you're at a point where you're excluding a race of people for something for any reason, you're creating the next generation of racism in dissent, in my opinion.
And you're creating the next generation for setting them up for failure, because
yes.
Here's the thing. We understand that our nation is built of a number of different cultures and races, and we understand our history. And we understand that we have a very valuable nation that obviously people want to break the law to get here illegally. But here's the thing. When we start trying to pretend or avoid our real, true history and how we got to where we are,
sure.
And like you said, just push one race class over another, all we've done is we've tried to erase the very vital past, and we're setting ourselves up for a future. If you don't recall and remember and know and learn from what your past is, then you are going to, it will just be obvious that you will make the same mistakes over and over. And it is confusing because, all of us come from mixed culture backgrounds. We all do. And so it does send a very difficult message to not only our children, but even in our own, worlds today. Many of us have mixed culture relatives and family members and friends and all this, and now it's just driving that wedge, and it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, it is absolutely dangerous. So it's a sad day, but I still feel so blessed to be there. And I've just decided, listen, I want to make sure we're talking about the real. I don't think it's enough to say, yes, we're really busy in oversight. We've had some crazy bills. I think people need to know the truth. They need to hear what is really going on in Congress, on any level of government,
sure.
So they can be more informed, because clearly the mainstream media and Facebook and all this, they're not going to tell people the real ins and outs of what's going on, know. And I think that it's just important that voters and constituents and business owners and families understand this is very reckless, and it is very worrisome to see that we're on the Capitol Hill aspect. We're driving more this racial issue and these types of things versus, hey, how do we get people back in the workforce? How do we jumpstart the economy? How do we help New Mexico lower that high unemployment rate? How do we secure the border and keep these, illicit drugs like fentanyl and the methamphetamines out of our streets, out of our schools, out of our neighborhoods? These are real life problems.
Absolutely.
Yet no one in D.C. wants to address them, because we'd rather talk about things that, quite honestly, I have not been approached by anybody in the district that is feeling like this critical race theory is a great idea, or that this birthing while black was somehow helpful to them in their current state of economy with their children. And don't get me wrong, I think there's always a valid point to some things, but when we're not talking and solving the problems that are affecting our day-to-day lives and helping the people who sent us there to make things better, I think then we've missed our mark as a member, as Congress. And
sure.
I know I'm in the minority, so it's very difficult to get things done, but it's not difficult to speak about this stuff all the time and let people know, kind of the inside track on what's happening.
Yeah, it's I know, and I'm glad that you understand that too. As a congresswoman representing the 2nd Congressional District in New Mexico, there's only so much powers and things you can do to try to, get to people to see. But the one thing you can do, because you have a pulpit now, and you can, when you can't change it, you can expose it and hope it brings to light these things and forces enough people to force that change to happen, and that's
right.
Yeah.
And you're right. And so many of these issues are I know that so many times the media and so many things, they want to push this and make it a Republican versus Democrat. I'm going to tell you, Mike, the things that you and I have been talking about, these are not partisan issues. These are people issues.
Sure.
These are real life. My check's not getting any bigger. Prices of gas, prices of food, prices of normal commodities are going through the roof. How am I going to make ends meet? These are the real life issues that are hitting everybody, not just Republicans, not just Democrats. And that's where I hope that as the next number of months move ahead, that we can start understanding that as people we need to get united together and start utilizing our collective voices and move kind of that partisan politics, that divisiveness out of the way, and have real, genuine conversations about policies that can actually help, or in most cases that's coming out now, hurt the American people.
Absolutely. I know I'm surprised Casey hasn't yelled at me yet.
I know, right? He's probably not monitoring this. I'm surprised.
Okay.
I know, because a minute ago you said, did you hear beeping? But it wasn't on my end.
Yeah, it was on my end apparently. But
yeah, yeah, so, that's funny because
But we do appreciate you talking with us, and you're right. I appreciate the fight that you have right now, and I'm very glad you're there and understand it, and I don't envy you in that work ahead of you, but I'm so glad that you're very aware and very knowing what's coming next, and got to handle your business. And I think we here in Southeast New Mexico and Southern New Mexico are pretty thankful that you're there to at least make sure our voice isn't ignored.
You bet. Well, it's like I said, it's my honor to do it, and it's always so great to be home, because it's like that chicken soup for the soul. You know, when I get to be around the New Mexicans and just be entrenched again in our way of life here, and our culture, and our Mexican food, our chili. It's always a good day.
Well,
so I think, to me, it's just imperative that I'm running around the district and talking in person and on the radio and everywhere I can, to just let people know, here's what's going on. Now you can try to make informed decisions on what your next steps will be, because here are the policies coming down, and this, I think, just information is power, and when people have that information, then they can make informed decisions and understand what government is doing to them, or their livelihoods, or even their children's education.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you said something, it was good to come home. You're DC. I grew up there, so I know, but DC is way different than New Mexico. The mindset, the people, it's just a different way of looking at life than we do it out here in New Mexico. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just different. And so,
it's very different. Yeah. I see it, especially on, when you get into the Capitol Hill area. It's, it's very interesting, because I see people that are very engaged in their districts and going home all the time, and then I see other people that don't leave the Hill. They kind of like that lifestyle. It's very different, and to me, it's like living in a one of those snow globes.
Yeah.
It's not really. It could be. It's beautiful, and it's very interesting, and I appreciate the history there in terms of our monuments and all that. But you're in a little bit of a snow globe. The real world is outside this, back in New Mexico. Back in small town New Mexico, and back in the farming communities, and back in our day-to-day reality. So I just think it's important not to, and I think this is why term limits is so important.
Mm-hmm.
You get people that all of a sudden get a little too comfortable in the snow globe, and it's not that fun to come back and hear. I think it's just, I just love New Mexico, but I love the people, and I'm so appreciative of this. I just want to make sure I'm talking to folks all the time. But that's, and I think there's some accountability to that. And, I'll go and people ask hard questions, and, most times I have an answer, sometimes I don't. But I know then what's on the minds of the people of New Mexico.
Sure.
I know where their concerns are. I know, what they're thinking, and I think that just makes me better. Even if it, like you said, it's just being that drum and being that voice, it makes me better in terms of bringing those true concerns and values that are so dear to New Mexico,
sure,
to Washington.
Well, I've seen it firsthand too. When you talk about, like, when people ask you questions, sometimes you know the answer, sometimes you don't. But when those times where you don't know the answer, I know what happens next. You get your staff, and you work on getting an answer for that person, and so it's not an ignored. Even if you don't know the answer, I've seen you do it. Where all right, well, I'll get my staff, and we're going to come up with an answer, or at least an understanding of what you're talking about here, and you do that every time.
And boy, and the staff, again, brought them up. What a blessing it's been to have just such a great group of individuals, just the talent and the skill sets and the willingness to just, always help me do my very best. So we've been so blessed to have the group we have, and really have done a lot of good things with constituent services as it relates to helping with casework. I mean, we've done hundreds, and actually we have about a 96% closed approval on a lot of our casework, which is amazing. But, we have a veterans liaison who works specifically with our veterans, attends their meetings, works with them with their casework, because I just think that there is a real need to be engaged with the veteran community. And I, in fact, just signed on to a bill that would absolutely take down the barriers, so it would give our veterans the ability to receive health care, whether it's behavioral health, physical therapy, regular medical, through any avenue, through any provider, because we just made it so tough on our veterans to receive medical services. And so I'm hopeful that bill, there's several co-sponsors on it, so I'm hopeful that bill gets some legs and moves, because there you go. There is a great bill that would benefit a very large population among the country, and deservedly so. And, and here's what's sad. The conversations with healthcare and some of the transportation problems that our veterans are having, same conversations, Mike, we were having when I was a state representative, same conversation. I mean, these are, 10, 8, 9, 10 years old and beyond. It's time to stop that, kicking the can down the road, and let's get serious about getting some viable health care options available to our veterans. And so, to me, that's one of those things, like you said earlier, and it's kind of a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
This is just something we should have done a long time ago. So we really push on that, but we have a liaison that works closely with our veterans all over the district. So, just trying to make sure that we're listening to the constituency, working on, issues, or at least writing letters on their behalf, in terms of industry, and just keeping the heartbeat of what is important to New Mexico at the forefront.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, and maybe this is probably where we call it the wrap. If folks do want to get a hold of you in your office, what's probably the best way to get? Is it through your offices locally or online? What's probably, if someone has a question or an issue that they would want to put in front of you, what's probably the best way to do that right now?
Yeah, the best way to do it. We just redid our website,
mm-hmm.
so it's got a lot of good stuff on it, the letters and everything we've done. But it's just Herrell, HERRELL .house.gov, and on there, then you can send an email. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can get the phone numbers for our DC office, also our Las Cruces and our Roswell offices. But it's a great website, and it has a lot of information on terms of different issues and that we're working on. And so it's herrell.house.gov.
Okay.
That's probably the fastest way. And of course, we've got a great team of interns in our office this summer, and so those young men are just incredible. Have been so honored. And let me just say, there is great hope for our country. I gauge that on the caliber of these interns that have wanted to come up and spend their summer in a congressional office, and it has been such a refreshing sight to see. I mean, these are 18 to 21-year-olds, and they are smart and motivated, and I think to myself, the future of our country is going places, because these young people are really more engaged than what social media or mainstream media would want you to believe.
Sure. Yeah, and that's your how, if you're wanting to, it's like, how do people work as clerks and getting, and even in, some of this is it. They start at 18 interning for different members of Congress or different other entities in government, and they learn the ropes. They learn how business is done, and then they go on to be your chiefs of staff or the representative or senator or whoever. That's this is the ground level of getting into the life of government, is starting out as an intern, managing schedules, updating. That's how they get the foot in the door. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So it's great to see that the young crop here is got a good head on their shoulders. That's good.
Oh, they do. It just it makes my heart smile. Because you see just the energy and the interest. I mean, they're genuinely interested in policies. And so when the interns we pair them. So as an example, if there's one that has a real interest in, say, communications, then we pair that one with our communications director, so that you help with the social media or the graphics or the newsletters we send out. If we have one that's more interested in policy, then we put them with our policy director, so they can kind of understand the process of how bills are crafted and written in Washington, D.C. And then I'll take them to committee hearings with me. I'll take them. They can't get on the House floor, but I'll take them over to the Capitol with me, so they can kind of go through that whole process. And it's, what's great is not only are they doing a great service in our office, but they're networking, they're meeting friends. There's a lot of interns on the Hill, and it's very exciting to watch these young men. Right now, we don't have any young ladies yet, but I know we will.
Ladies apply.
These young men, though, it's good for the soul because they're meeting people, they're doing stuff. But let me tell you about this group because I know we got to get off here. But they were here for this. They're here for the summer. Some of them are leaving. So I told them before we came on recess. I said, I'm going to be here. That was a couple of weekends ago. I said, I'm here. So I want to go and do something fun with you guys, and I'll let you guys pick what we go do. And, of course, everybody wants to go to baseball games, but the Nationals were out of state that day.
Oh, they were out of town.
Yeah. But I thought they were going to say, well, let's take the boat up to Mount Vernon or let's, go over to National Island or whatever it's called and do the Ferris wheel. I thought it was going to be stuff like that. You know what they picked? Huh. They picked the Museum of the Bible.
Really?
I mean, it's a fascinating.
I've never been to that museum. I've been to a bunch.
Oh my gosh!
I missed that one. The museum. There's a couple I haven't been to, but
I had never been in it either, and it is fascinating, and there's a lot of interaction in it, which I did not know, and so it was a fascinating tour, and in fact, obviously we spent like 4 or 5 hours there. I was shocked. But collectively, they had all wanted to go to that museum, and of course, the museums were just starting to get back open again. Yeah. And I mean, I tell you, these kids are incredible, and it was a great day, and so we spent the whole day together and hung out with the interns and, take them to lunch and just, because I appreciate, one, their interest in our country and what we're founded on. But so I always try to make it a good time for our guys so that, one, because I'm so appreciative, but two, I just appreciate them for wanting to be involved and to take that time from their summer and come up and spend it in D.C. So it's a great life experience, and I know they're meeting a lot of new friends and taking with them some experience that will carry them through maybe for their next step or their next chapter in life. So it's a great opportunity.
If you ever get a chance to do another trip, and I know they get to pick and all that, and I know, like you said, Mount Vernon and all that, but one that's a little outside the Beltway, if you ever get a chance, go up to Baltimore to the Inner Harbor and Fort McHenry area. That's a beautiful, neat area, too, to check out if you ever get a chance. I know
I'll have to do it.
There's some bad parts of Baltimore to stay, but Inner Harbor by where the Orioles play and the Ravens play, that area, and then Fort McHenry, which is right there. And, of course, that's where the Star-Spangled Banner came from, Francis Scott Key, all of that right there. And that's the fort there. That's a cool little, if you're a history buff, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But the Inner Harbor is really cool, too.
It is, and I think it's really neat because there's so many things close by Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And like you said, for the history and just to see, the beginnings of our nation and the architecture and just the monuments and all these things that really make us so unique and special as a nation. It really is. I mean, to me, I think it's worthy of a trip to D.C. I think I got an email last night that said they are taking or have taken all the fences down, and I think they're going to now start opening the Capitol back up. See, it's been closed for any kind of tours. It hasn't ever been open.
I guess since COVID, probably,
since COVID. So it looks like that might be, opening up, and that will be great. Because I know there's been a lot of people from New Mexico that have been trying to plan trips out there to go to the Capitol, but the Capitol's been closed. So I'm hopeful that opens up. But anyway, but it's just a great opportunity, and so grateful for the kids, and I'm grateful to spend so much time with you today.
Yeah,
oh my
gosh! I had a guest that show, so it all kind of worked out. I had a guest who was supposed to be in, but I haven't seen him, so I was like, well, I'll just keep talking to the congresswoman.
Heck yeah, you did. I'll keep talking. Casey hasn't texted me or anything,
and I haven't got a text saying get off or shut up. So I was like, I'm going to.
I know, right? I haven't either. So
well, I'm going to let you go now, though. So because I'm sure you have other things to do today.
I kind of do, but I've just appreciated this, and it's just been such a nice conversation. I've enjoyed it so much.
I always spend time, and I'd love next time you get if you're in Roswell and we can do this again. I'd love to do that. We could chit chat in person and talk more about what you're seeing, and slip a crab cake story or something in there too.
There you go. Sounds like a plan.
All right.
All right. Well, you have a great weekend, and thank you, and just God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, ma'am. God bless you, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
Sounds good. All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. All right, that was Congresswoman Yvette Herrell. Yes, we got a little bonus time with her. Bill Williams, I hadn't seen him. I kept checking with Tanner. Is he here? No. I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep talking to the Congresswoman until they yell at me. So there you go.